is that they were forged in a magnet. That is especially classified.
Because we did not have enough titanium in the US, the CIA set up a shell corporation to purchase titanium from the only country in the world that had enough, the Soviet Union.
That is so classified, me being able to say it's classified is classified.
You know, venture motorcycling isn't just about riding out in the wilderness, so that's a big percentage of it. But once in a while, you have to make a stop at really cool places. This is Evergreen Aviation and Space Museum. It's definitely something you need to pop by and check out when you're in Oregon. It's pretty cool. So there's two different buildings. There's your aviation building, and then walk across the parking lot and you have your Space Museum. Today I want to cover my favorite airplane. It's so well engineered. It came out in 1966. It's a highly top secret. What's really cool about the plane is it's so simple. It's a single turbo jet engine that'll go Mach 3.2, 2,300 miles per hour.
It broke a record by zipping from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. in just 64 minutes and 20 seconds. This aircraft flew so high that it used stellar inertial navigation, since it flew high enough to see the stars.
So let's get into the SR-71, better known as the Blackbird. Gentleman here that is going to talk about it with us. And this is Doug.
Hello, people. This is the Evergreen Aviation and Space Museum in beautiful McMinnville, Oregon. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the SR-71 today. One of the most amazing things about this aircraft, the fastest air-breathing aircraft ever fly at 3 times the speed of sound. This entire thing was made with slide rules. No computers were used in making it because they did not exist at a high enough capacity yet.
Wow.
The skin is all titanium. Each panel, if you look closely at it, is a unique shape, and each SR-71 was hand-built. So you cannot actually interchange panels between SR-71s.
How many of them were made?
I believe there were about 30 made. Because each panel is handmade for each SR-71, if a panel is broken, Lockheed would send a crew with their own machinery to come out and hand mill a replacement panel. The other amazing thing about the panels, because we did not have enough titanium in the US, the CIA set up a shell corporation to purchase titanium from the only country in the world that had enough, the Soviet Union.
Oh.
So we bought it from the Soviet Union, gave it to Lockheed to make the SR-71 to spy on the Soviet Union. The other amazing thing about the titanium panels is every time it flew, the friction heated up the fuselage to several thousand degrees, hardening the titanium. As it came back and cooled, slowing it down, it then tempered the titanium. So literally every flight made the SR-71 fuselage strong. It leaks, has us taking off until it expands.
One problem with the SR-71 Blackbird was that its titanium skin expanded at high speeds, causing gaps in the fuselage where fuel would seep out.
Wow.
Because they were not able to come up with a material to seal the gas tanks that could withstand those extreme temperatures.
Right.
There is a urban legend or rumor that it had to refuel immediately after takeoff to make up all the fuel that was lost.
Yeah.
Actually, it had to refuel so it could purge all the air out of the tank, so there was no oxygen in there when it was at altitude flying at several hundred degrees.
So it would, take off from the airport and then be refueled in air.
In air.
And then it would hit its 80,000 feet full at 3.2 Mach. It's been measured at 2,300 miles per hour, but they say it can go faster, but it's temperature-based, not speed-based.
Correct.
Oh man, I did my homework.
Yes, good job. So the heart of it are these engines. This is the J58. And if you are an aviation engine nerd, you'll notice that even numbers are Navy engines, odd numbers are Air Force engines.
Didn't know that.
J-58, it started life as a Navy engine. The Navy wanted a supersonic bomber off their aircraft carriers, and Lockheed said, sure, here's the plan. And the Navy said, wow, that is a lot of money. So then the Air Force took over and started making it. And so if we look at the engine in close, you can see just how incredibly complex it is.
I saw something, first of all, that's titanium.
Yes.
And they had to hire a really small guy, like a really, really short guy, that would put this suit on, white suit with little booties. It had no pockets in it. And it had to be a really small guy because he would crawl in the back of the cone. And his job was to clean it out, and then he would check the integrity of these blades. Yeah. They couldn't even have a little dent in it. And the measurements had to be perfect. And if they weren't, then he would go back in there with a little file and have to file them straight again. It's really interesting.
So the most amazing thing about these blades, and keep in mind we are talking 1950s era technology, is that they were forged in a magnet.
Oh, wow.
So as the blade was forged in the magnet, it would slowly pull the blade out as it was forged, aligning all the molecules into a single lattice structure for extra strength, as long as it's this way.
Right.
So very strong for the air coming in, brittle every other way. So everyone had to be really careful in how the engine was treated.
Wow. And it's one piece, isn't it?
Yes.
And I guess these read the temperature intakes.
Yes.
Based on that, 800 degrees was max on that material.
Yep. I follow a lot of rocket scientists on Blue Sky, and one of them once said that 90% of making a rocket motor is plumbing. And I think about that when I look at the SR-71 engine.
God, that's insane.
And all the tubing that it has to do to get the oil and other components where it needs to be. And all of this is mechanically controlled.
That's amazing.
It's just incredible technology, and
Still to this day, because it's simple and it's a single turbo.
Yes.
And I love how they, I do this on some of the parts of my motorcycle, cross-threaded.
The safety wire.
Safety wire keeps it from reversing.
Yep. So the big thing with this engine are these 3 tubes, and there are 3 more on the other side. And this is what takes ram air from the front, bypasses the turbine section, and dumps it into the back for extra exhaust when it's in full burger.
Right.
And that's what essentially turns it into a ramjet. So the SR-71 sips fuel at Mach 3 and absolutely drinks from a fire hose the rest of the time.
Wow. They had to cool it because they were getting backwash. I guess this gets really hot. And they had to introduce cold air, and what he's talking about here, the inducts or whatever.
Yes, these
vents,
cold air ducts.
And inside of here, they have 24 doors, I guess, that open up. So when they're getting ready to hit the afterburners, they open up, and then it rushes the cool back here. And this is where the magic happens.
Yeah. When this engine was built, every other engine at the time, if it was in full afterburner for more than 20 minutes, it was a full and immediate write-off. That engine was dead, would never fly again because of the damage to the metallurgy of that temperature and pressure for 20 minutes. Right. To test the SR-71 engine, they hooked it up to a test bed and ran it in full afterburner for 24 hours straight with no damage.
Wow.
And just to put that in perspective, at full afterburner, it is burning through about 40,000 pounds of fuel an hour.
So what was the capacity of fuel?
Capacity of fuel was about 70,000 gallons, was about 70,000 pounds. So if you think about it, because it has a top speed of around 2,300 miles,
right,
its range is about Well, its top speed was 2,300 miles per hour. Its range was approximately 2,300 miles. So it basically had an hour of fuel, but it let you go coast to coast
Right.
in that hour.
You're basically, aren't you in space at that altitude, 80,000? You're like right at the edge of space, aren't you, at 80,000?
You can see the Earth's curvature.
Right. Unless it's flat, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I keep asking to go up so I can test that
I know, I
theory.
wanna know.
And
I
they're
wanna
like,
know.
no. So one last thing that I'd like to share with you all about the SR-71. We had a symposium here 2 years ago where I got to talk to a lot of SR-71 pilots. And I asked them, what is the one thing you would like people to know about the SR-71? And what they all said was our gratitude. They were all incredibly humble and grateful to have flown such an amazing machine. And they loved coming and talking about it and sharing their experiences. And I'll just do a quick pitch that we have another symposium this Father's Day,
Oh, okay.
June 15th,
Okay.
where we're going to have several SR-71 pilots and mechanics. We'll be out here to talk to y'all.
Oh, wow. I'll be there. So we're walking over to what they call the starter cart. It takes an engine, 2 engines, to just crank this thing up to a certain amount of RPMs. Can crank the motors in this. I think that's how it works, but we'll have Doug explain it to us.
So getting the SR-71 started is a task. Part of that is because the fuel to fly at these altitudes and temperatures is basically so non-volatile that we could spill a bunch here and just light matches and throw it in, and it would just put the matches out.
Oh, right.
So getting it to start was a trick.
It's basically kerosene, isn't it?
It's a
special
particular blend of kerosene. And in fact, the tankers who flew for the SR-71 were their own fleet.
Okay.
They only carried fuel for the SR-71. So the starter cart has a pair of Buick engines, and they are 425 cubic block engines, V8s each. And they were the only ones that had the power and torque to get enough oomph to start the engine. But what's interesting is Buick stopped making them. And so every Air Force base basically sent out their tech mechanics to local scrap yards to find as many of these Buick motors as they could without telling anyone what they were looking for, so no one tried to corner the market on the Buick engines.
They just couldn't get the blueprints and cast them themselves.
Apparently not. Apparently not. So one question we get about the tail is why an American plane has 4 German Iron Crosses on it.
Oh, yeah, I've never seen that before.
And these planes were located, the Iron Crosses are on the Beale base logo because one of the squadrons there traces its history to the American Expeditionary Force in World War I, and they flew 4 bombing campaigns against the Germans in World War I. So those are the 4 Iron Crosses for the 4 bombing campaigns they did in the Great War.
Okay, cool. That makes sense.
Yeah. So this is a D-21 drone, and the idea was that this would be on the back of the SR-71, and it could then fly anywhere that the SR-71 couldn't. Then we came to find out that there's nowhere that the SR-71 couldn't fly, so we didn't need it. It was tested multiple times off of a B-52.
Okay.
Dropping them, it would do its mission, fly to a location, and then they would pick up the camera cartridge from there. I believe every test except for 1 or 2 ended in failure. Some ended up in never finding the drone again, deep in the hills of China.
You might have said it. I mean, when did they develop this?
This was in the 60s.
Oh, so in the 60s they had drone technology.
Yeah, very limited compared to what we have now.
Huh, interesting.
So one more thing about the SR-71. This is an inertial navigation system that was developed in the 60s, early 60s, to tell the SR-71 where it is.
Oh, okay.
So the top of it is actually looking out to stars in the sky.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I was told by one of the pilots that on the ramp at LAX at noon, this could look up and find 3 stars in the sky to navigate by.
Wow.
So
okay.
this is how they knew where the SR-71 was at all times. It was good, I want to say, within about 30 meters, so about 30, 35 feet. Every SR-71 cockpit had a moving map display. Think of it like an analog version of your Google Maps. And every cockpit, it has been replaced by a black disc. It is still classified to this day.
Oh, wow.
So we don't have it, we just have a spot in the center of the console with a disc in it.
Oh, okay. And is that the camera equipment there? Wasn't there
Yeah, so it had electronic, it could record electronic warfare data, and its main thing was taking pictures. So this is a jammer, so this is electronic warfare.
Okay.
And then as we come further down, this is a camera. You can see the mirror on the side.
Oh, yeah.
And it would literally be able to take pictures over hundreds of miles simultaneously. Like tens of thousands of square feet of reconnaissance each mission.
Oh, I see. And that's the reel right there.
Yep. And you can tell how big the print paper is.
Wow.
The bigger the paper, the bigger the resolution of the image. And you can see over here the difference from the Countach, where this area here can be blown up to that size. Since they flew at 80 to 90,000 feet, they could stay off the coast of the Soviet Union in international airspace and look into the country and could literally look in hundreds of miles.
That's so awesome.
Capturing all this data throughout.
So is it bulletproof?
That's classified.
Can you track it with modern equipment today, the radar?
That is especially classified.
Would the jet actually chew up rocks? I mean, is it that strong?
That is so classified. Me being able to say it's classified is classified.
And I'm assuming the seats are red for some reason inside?
Classified.
I don't know. We're not going to get anything out of this guy. This is the tip of the cone, right there.
One last thing about flying it.
Okay.
At our last symposium, I talked to an SR-71 pilot who, after retiring from the SR-71, went on to fly the U-2.
Oh.
So I asked him about the difference. He said that the SR-71 was by far the most mentally demanding plane to fly because you are moving so fast, moving faster than a rifle bullet.
Right.
Everything you do is planned out. An SR-71, we're in the state of Oregon. If you started on the coast and made a right 180-degree turn, you would finish that on the Idaho border.
Oh, really? Wow.
Because they're only able to move 1 degree of axis tilt at a time because of the speed limitations. So that's our brief SR-71 tour from the Evergreen Aviation and Space Museum. Thank you all for stopping by. Please, if you're ever in Oregon, if you come to McMinnville, the heart of wine country, come on down, give us a visit. We have the Spruce Goose in the other building. We have an F-117. We have a whole historical collection, and we are one of the only places to have a full set of the Century Series jets.
Mr. Doug, I want to thank you for your time and your information. And
absolutely. Appreciate it.
You're going to have some venture motorcyclists come here. Definitely.
Awesome.
Guys, you got to check this out. Definitely. Thanks.
All right.